So a few weeks ago, we talked about Home Assistant and power monitoring. And in this video, we're going to do the Emporia to ESPHome conversion. Now, if you don't want to hear about some of the stuff and I want to blab too much, and yeah, just find these subjects down below and hit the like while you're there, since I told you how to skip me blabbing along. Now, why we want to do power monitoring, a quick little catch up on things. The Emporia comes with some stupid stock firmware. But the cool part about that is we can bring it into locally into Home Assistant with ESPHome, no cloud, get rid of this stupid cloud dependency thing, right? Now, if you don't want to flash something because you're too worried about, you don't want to get extra tools and it's too geeky, I totally understand that. You're going to want to jump into the ESPHome one. I'll leave that link down below. This one you do have to pair it with their app, but it does have a local integration and you don't have to flash it. Now, we'll be doing a full in-depth on that one later on. It just won't be in this particular video. We're going to focus on the Emporia and putting ESPHome on that. So first off, if you're going to flash yours, it's an awesome skill to learn of being able to how to put ESPHome on a particular device. This same little theory applies to a lot of different things. If you can go out there, there's a lot of different products you may find in the future that are ESP or Beacon or etc. And you want to make it local and make it yours and get rid of that cloud dependency since you paid for it. Because always remember that rule of get your shit out the cloud. So a few things you're going to need, of course, is the Emporia. I'll link all the stuff down below. Those are affiliate links, but there's no additional cost to you. I do appreciate you supporting the channel that way. So a few things I like to get for tools wise. You don't have to get the exact ones. I do like my little iFixit toolkit because it comes with a nice set of different like spudgers and different little tools. And then you get all of your bits, all different sizes and everything. You do get what you pay for on that, but there are some other cheaper alternatives. You don't have to get this specific one. Now, for flashing, you will need, I prefer, and say you really have to have this, I do like this cable that is USB-A on both sides, and then it has a switch in the middle. And the cool part about that is once you have all the probes in, you can just turn your USB on and off. Fairly cool. I did this without this for years. The first time I did this, I'm like, damn, I was an idiot for not having this before. Now, the other thing is really great is a BDM frame. And no, don't let your mind go in the gutter, not doing any of that stuff. But basically, you've got these probes that have sharp points on the end. And basically, we're going to put the board down in, and you put these probes touching the points. And then there's no soldering. So you don't have to solder the little bitty pads on the Emporia. I would say once you get it done the first time, it kind of clicks like, oh yeah, that's how I do that. But it does take a little bit of patience. Now, of course, if you're a master solderer, you can skip the BDM frame and just solder the damn thing. Now, if you really want to go crazy, I love this thing. No, it doesn't come with the logo, but it is the PC Bytes. And these have the DuPont jumpers and everything built on. And then you get these little, just stick them down and it goes on the pads. They're weighted. It's this cool little flexible thing. But I will tell you the PC Byte ones are pricey. But damn, I love them. You get, again, you get what you pay for in that. Now, the weird thing is you're only going to get like 4 probes in some of these. So there's going to be a 5th probe you need, or just DuPont jumpers. And with the DuPont jumpers, these are fairly cheap. Just going to get you a set of female to male and male to female. I think they come in like 3 different flavors in the kit. And that way you can get all the little ones you need, different colors, and you'll lose them all. And then you go back to the batch and get some more, but it's no biggie there. Now, what connects this to the computer is I like to call it the little red guy. And yeah, it is super small. It's just a USB-A, and it goes to the same little DuPont jumpers on the back. This is the CP2102 chip. I really like that one. I've never had any issues with like powering things or anything. These are fairly inexpensive. The only thing is I really wish they had an additional ground pin, but then you can just twist two together to hook two grounds on the same deal. So that's pretty much what we're going to cover on the parts you need and everything. If you still want to stay along with this, let's jump into taking this thing apart. So really on the bottom, what you need to do, there are some Phillips screws on the bottom. And then also I do find on the coax connector here is if you back that off with some pliers. Because sometimes I do find that gets in the way when trying to open it. There are some little clips around the side. And sometimes it will want to try to just come open. And you may not even need the spudger, but yes, you may just come around and pop some of the sides open, and you're not going to really break those clips. Even if you do, then there's no big deal because there's like, what, 5 screws holding it together. But you can see it's like binding on this coax connection again. So I find I just pull that apart and just wiggle things around until you can get it open. So it comes apart just like that. You can see it's got this little clip right here. I've probably ruined the clip here. I've opened this one before, but it's no big deal. Now you don't lose this. You don't need to really see what's on the front of this, but I'll show you just for funsies, since everybody loves to see the guts of things. There is the ESP32 sitting right there. And then all the other stuff, you can see they do the spark gap and etc. for the mains power. This does have allow for 3 mains power, so that's like 3-phase. But we're here in the US, we're only doing split phase, so it doesn't really matter. But it's cool that it supports everybody with just one unit. So what we're trying to look at is actually right here. I'll put a frame up so you can see it a little better. But it is 3v3 ground RXD and TXD. Now what's confusing on this is the USB TTL just laid up here. It's got a little bit of a glare, but you can kind of make it out. The confusing part is typically on these, we're trying to do RX to TX on here. But the manufacturer, Emporia, has already flipped those for us. So RX goes to RX, TX goes to TX. Usually that's not the case on most things, but in this particular labeling it is. If you get that wrong, no big deal. You just flip-flop it and go. Now do not get the 3v3, the ground mixed up, and do not wire to 5 volts. You will smoke this if you feed it too much juice or do reverse polarity. So make sure that's important. RX, TX will just, if it doesn't work, you'll flip it around. You'll notice also this little ring here. That is GPIO 0. We'll probably take a DuPont jumper, such as this one, and simply slide it in the hole. Yeah, all jokes there. And just put it at an angle, and that way you know it's actually grounding out. This would need to go to ground as well. So you will need 2 ground pins on your TTL. Of course, this only has 1. You can just take you a jumper and cut it, and then, twist it together or whatever, put it in a Wago or something like that to branch off of. Whatever you come up with, I've actually soldered another little header and made me a little splitter out of them. You can do whatever you need to. So let's get this wired up in the BDM, and I'll probably show it in the PC Byte as well, but I don't want to just go to the PC Byte because that one's pretty expensive, and I know everybody's going to go flip out when they see the price on that. So one thing I do recommend is, I don't probably do what I do. This is just, I was trying to make longer wires, so I did like this female to male, male to male. In a pinch, you want to do male to a female, But I like to go ahead and on the probes themselves is go ahead and connect all of your DuPont wires. We're only going to need 4 for this. We're just going to put a DuPont male straight in that GPIO 0 hole. GPIO 0, you only need it held to ground at boot, but it doesn't matter. You can put it to ground the entire time you're flashing. It's not going to hurt it. And don't worry, once I get this set up, I will do like a complete overview with my phone to kind of show the exact layout. So in the BDM frame, basically what you'll do is just put it down in the hole, and you're going to put it on the actual pad. And I start out kind of to the right, and they should kind of stick to the pad. And you're going to bump them. That's going to happen. And you'll just readjust them once you have them all in there. There's just no really method to the madness. Once you just kind of figure it out, it'll click once you do 1 or 2 of these. But of course we're only doing 1, but this is something you'll use in other situations as well. Now once you have them all placed, just have some patience with it. But once you get it, it's amazing. You don't have to solder the damn thing because those are some really small pads. But of course, you're a master solderer. Go right ahead. And well, we're going to turn this on and then we'll jump into ESPTool just to check to make sure we do have our valid config. And we're going to back this thing up in case you want to go back to factory. So let's turn on the USB. We should hear it on our speakers, depending on your operating system, and we'll jump over to the computer. Now, basically, you can see we have the USB wire here. It goes to the USB switch, and then I have a little clip here just to keep things, secure. Then we have all the wires. I try to follow the wires so I don't get confused, like red, black, and orange and yellow for the RX-TX. So then inside that little ring, let's see if we can get it there, is you're going to get GPIO 0. And you can see I have it at an angle, and that way it's touching that copper ring. And then you can see my pins down below, and it should make a good connection. You may not get it on your first try, but other than that, it should be just fine. Now what I did, you can see here, is for my ground, this is like an old header I had, and I just solder it together. You could just take and twist these several grounds together instead of trying to use a header like this, but it all depends on what you want to do because we need 2 ground pins. 1 ground goes here and 1 ground goes on GPIO 0. So now that you got all the wires connected, USB turned on, if you really want to get geeky, there is ESPTool Pi. You can check your connection. That way you can just kind of get that out the way before you start building the stuff in ESPHome. Now, one method I use is just esptool.py. They do have pre-compiled versions. You can go grab those off of GitHub. And I just do flash ID _ID. And hit enter, and it should connect to your device. And if you get this that looks something like this, where it says detecting chip and shows the flash size and everything, you should be good to go. It has a good connection. Now, once you've done this, it's no longer going to be in bootloader mode. So you will need to cycle the power on the TTL. That's where that little switch comes into play, because you just flip it off and flip it right back on. Now, if you want to back things up, because potentially you may want to put these dumb factory stock firmware back on this thing, it is a 8 meg flash. So I went and grabbed the 8 meg backup. So I'm going to read flash. We're doing the 8 meg backup. You can name it whatever you want. Another thing you can do is you can back it up twice. And then you could do like an MD5 hash to see if it's the same exact file. That way you got a good backup if you pulled it twice. So we'll go ahead and hit enter. And you'll see it saying that's going to start backing it up. You can see how long it's going to take. It can take a little bit. Just go away and come back, and you should have your backup after it's completed. Since we're waiting on that to back up, if you don't already have ESPHome, the ESPHome builder with HA, with Home Assistant, you will need to install that. Just go over to esphome.io And they do have this whole getting started section if you want to run it through command line, if you want to run it through just an add-on, all kind of different ways, Docker containers, Docker Compose, whatever you want to do. But you will need to build your own firmware because it has your own little settings in there, and it does it all through YAML files. And stupid little thought of the day, ESPHome used to be called ESPHome YAML. They took the YAML out the name, but didn't take the YAML out the ESPHome. So I will have the whole ESPHome file on my website. There's a few little changes I've had to do recently, and I will tweak that as I do the video. I'll probably have it up here at the top, but during the recording of this, I have it down here. It's basically the whole YAML file. You got the whole, like, where the pinouts are. You can just copy and paste this. I'll change it up. It's not going to be exactly what you see here on the screen because there has been a couple little changes to things. And you should be able to copy it into ESPHome itself. You'll just hit copy and boom, change a couple things and roll. So what you'll want to do, of course, you may have a blank dash, is just hit add device. It's the green button behind my head over here. And just hit continue. And we'll go ahead and give it a name. I'm just going to put a bunch of A's so it's at the beginning of my stuff. And this doesn't really matter because you're going to overwrite the whole thing, but you can pick ESP32. I'm not using the encryption keys. You can if you'd like. I'm just going to hit skip. And you should get your device that pops up in the list, and you'll get the whole setup here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and leave the top lines. Let me zoom this in for you and paste all that over it. And why I did that is so I can just keep my actual names that were actually that ESPHome put there. So I'll just nuke these 2 or 3, and that way you can see it will validate. Now, if you have some other special domain settings or whatever, put that in. But basically, this is going to build just a rolling start to get it on your network with the sensor. There's no other stuff in here right now. And I just like to build it this way, just way we're not getting a bunch of errors and looking at chasing CT clamps because we don't have any clamps connected right now. But I just like to get it on the network and get it into Home Assistant. We'll add our stuff later. So we'll hit save. Don't forget that. And then you'll do install. Hit manual download. Let it build. It may take a little bit based on your device. If you have like Raspberry Pi, it's maybe particularly slow right here. I have a Core i7, I think, in a Docker container. That's why it builds stupid fast. Now, once it does that, this is the very important step you have to do. And think about this for all future devices. When you flash an ESP32 that came from Tasmodo or came from stock firmware, you need to put the partitions on it. So that's where this factory format is. There's some cases you may do OTA when you're coming from some things, but we're not going to cover that in this video. Most of the time you'll do factory format. So we did factory format. Now do keep in mind your browser may block it. Go up there and hit the little download thing and hit the keep if Chrome blocks that bin file. And one thing I did want to mention, if you already have ESPToolPy and you want to get your nerd on, you can use ESPToolPy and flash the factory bin using this command line, but I'm not going to drag everybody down. We're trying to do ESPToolPy. Probably a lot of people didn't care about backing this thing up to begin with and skipped that whole chapter anyways. But there you go if you want to use that. I actually have that on my website. But for the easy way, let's jump over to ESP Web Tools. Now you'll need to first hit connect and you'll pick your TTL. Hopefully you just have one, hit connect, and you can hit install. And then you'll need to choose that factory bin file you just downloaded. So we'll hit install, cross your fingers, all your pins, should see connecting, and if the stars align, you'll see erasing. You know it's talking to the chip, and it should start to do the installing. If you get that, congratulations. Be patient. Don't touch anything, because those pins are just touching those little pads. We'll hit close. And then you'll need to jump back to your dashboard. Now, at this time, turn the USB switch off or unplug the wire if you don't have the little switch, and remove that jumper from GPIO 0. we're going to see if we have enough power for this thing to boot, actually get on our network. Sometimes it will not, and you will need to remove your probes and just connect it to mains. So we're gonna go jump back to our dashboard and we'll see, look, there it is. That just went showing online. Let's jump into the logs. Now it's online. You can see it's connected on our Wi-Fi. We're gonna put this all back together and then we'll do the CT clamp, plug them in. We'll do a couple things and see how it works out with some of the calibrations. You shouldn't have to change stuff a whole lot because this thing comes calibrated out the box. So congratulations on getting this far. And yeah, let's pick up all this damn mess we have for flashing this thing. Don't forget to turn it off before you start removing all your little BDM pins. So now you've got ESPHome flashed on this thing and you may be eager just to go throw it in the electrical panel and start configuring it. Yeah, I know it's exciting, but do keep in mind, yes, this is a PSA because I've joked many times, but for real, don't get your drunken cousin to come help you put this in your electrical panel. If you don't know what you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it because once you get shocked once, that's probably going to be it from the electrical panel. A lot of times that the top main feeds, which you will be putting like the large clamps on, you may not have a disconnect at the electric meter. Now, some people may have those. Great, perfect. Go out to the electric meter, cut it off, and look, don't be a freaking pansy of like, well, I'm just in a rush, and check the damn thing with a meter 2 or 3 times, and just to be for safe that the electricity is off. You always want to expect it to be hot. Now, of course, this being the Emporia Vue 3, you can cut these wires to size if you'd like to. That way it's not this big ass mess in the electrical panel, but you do need to make sure you don't short out the little ferrules on the back. You can recrimp those if you like. So one thing I do recommend, because it sucks if you're trying to troubleshoot in the panel, let's go ahead and I will show you what I'm going to do here. We're going to put this back together and then I'm going to go ahead and power this up. I only have one side of the split phase here in this room, and I'm going to go ahead and we'll fire up and we'll hook a clamp to it. I'll use my little split core deal, which actually has X10 on it. So we can actually take this 60 watt light bulb and we should get like a 600 watt load with it. We can check out to see how things are working. And that way, if we need to mess with the ESPHome config, troubleshoot things, you're not really frustrated and trying to dig off in the panel, trying to troubleshoot things, which can cause some mistakes at times, especially with hot wires and breakers and everything else. So if you got any questions on how this is all going to be installed or anything, it's all the same. I'll leave the link down for the Emporia installation manual. Just because we're changing and putting ESPHome on it doesn't make the actual physical install any different. You're going to wire it exactly the same. So check out that manual. You get a good idea of where things go and how they want things to be in the panel itself. Now, my conglomerate is basically just my testing, and I want to play with this on the bench. If you don't want to do this, by all means, okay, go play with it in the panel. I like to test stuff on the bench. It's kind of less frustration for me. Now, this little split core thing, I should be able to get 10 times output on the 60 watt light bulb and then the 60 on there. And I should see potentially 60 on here. Now, one thing you'll probably see it in the Emporia manual, one important thing is the actual direction of the clamps. Don't get really hung up on that except for trying to get the actual 2 mains ones. That's the ones that come over here on the side, the big ones for A and B, and if you're doing 3-phase, the C. You want to get those the exact orientation based on the voltage reference. You want to be positive because I don't think you can flip them in the software. Now, the smaller clamps, you can just go through and just say, hey, I messed up. It's showing negative. It should be positive. I don't have solar on that. So just go ahead and flip it to the different voltage reference, especially in the US where we have just split phase, where it's the same voltage on each hot leg, except they're just out of phase in most circumstances. So I've got my little sample config of all my sensors. I only enabled 8 sensors on this one. That's all I have is the 8 clamp on here. I didn't buy the full 16 clamps and I already have the Emporia 2. once you add this stuff in, you can just hit install. And you don't need to do any of the pin stuff or whatever anytime you change up ESPHome. You're all going to do it wirelessly. Just hit the wirelessly button. It may have to rebuild some of the stuff, but then it's going to go ahead and upload right over the air. Going to put your changes on there and you're done with it, not having to do the stupid flashing part anymore. Just be patient. It should reboot. Don't forget the antenna, like I said in the other segment. I've seen that done many times before. We're going to hit stop on this. That actually doesn't stop the device. Once you do that, jump over to Home Assistant, and you should see down here a notification saying new devices. If not, you may have to hit the blue button down behind me here and hit add integration, hit ESPHome, and then manually put in the IP address if MDNS has some issues on your network. So mine did auto discovery, hit add. It's going to say, yep, got the weird name, but that's just what I called it. You can call yours whatever you want. And we'll hit finish. And we should get all of the power readings and everything. Now, one thing you notice, I do have, I was showing 9 watts, 1.3 watts, and it's going to jump around. And that's because I don't have any clamps connected to them. If you don't want to use a particular port, then you will need to take it out of your totals and take it out of your config. Just comment it out because you may use it one day, or just put a dead clamp in there because otherwise it's going to pick up noise. So we got the phase A power coming on up, and we should get probably around 580 because it's times 10. I think it's this, so that's about top what we're going to get is at 585. And so that looks good. If you don't get any wattage on it, just flip the clamp around. Make sure you're not going to shock yourself or whatever. And then you should be able to get, see, look, I'm getting phase B power, none. If you do have solar, you will need to adjust the actual to like allow the negative values, because otherwise it's just going to say just positive only. Now that's one of the config changes I've seen on various GitHub threads for that, but everybody's going to be a little bit differently on their configs. And of course I'll share that discussion down there so you can jump in and copy and paste all the different various configs if you have solar or whatever else you have. And that's pretty much it. Once you go through and install everything, install your clamps, you can, if you screw up the direction on clamps 1 through 16, in the config itself, you can actually change, hey, this one's assigned to phase A, this is assigned to phase B for the voltage reference. Now that doesn't really apply for people doing 3-phase power, so you do definitely need to make sure and have your clamps and voltage references correct. The US people, if you get it backwards, you can just use the other voltage reference because it's 180 degrees out of phase from each other. Pretty simple there. So if you got any other questions on things with the configs, we have a discussion on my Discord that's kind of long, but there's a lot of cool things from people in there to help out and get your particular situation going. I know the config can be kind of confusing, but once you kind of get the hang of it and read around a little bit, and again, you're just sitting here hitting changes and saving and installing right over the air. How cool is that? So I wanted to talk about some things in the config right quick. Is definitely check the voltage calibration because you may need to adjust this number here, and that'll just help out with some of the accuracy. Now you may have to find something accurately to, compare it against, like a voltmeter or whatever. You're gonna find everything's just a little bit off from each other, so just get it close enough that you can get on all the different readings. Another thing to consider is, like I talked about, especially in the US, say like on your electric ovens and dryers, different other, split phase 240 volt appliances, those are going to have the 2 hot legs. You can pass those through the same clamp, but you need to pass them through in opposite directions, kind of like shown here in this little picture. I have done it on some smaller loads. Make sure you're not going over the amperage of the actual clamp. Now, if you can't do that, you don't have the slack to do so, you can use the config here. You can see we have one commented out. It has a multiply to. Now you may multiply the wrong leg, which is, say, the one that has the blower motor on it, and then you end up with too much watts or not enough watts, depending on which one you get, because it's an unbalanced load between the two hot legs. It's just kind of that thing you have to deal with. The ultimate solution, of course, is if you have the number of channels, is just to put a clamp on each leg. Now, there are a couple different configs based on, like, some people have solar and they're backfeeding things, and there's a lot of different variations of things. I highly suggest to go dig off through, and I'll leave the link down here, is to go dig off through this GitHub thread. There's a lot of different configs, the way people have flashed them to share, all the different little jigs they've come up with, from BDM frame kind of things with the probes, all kinds of different ways. It's a very long thread, I'll tell you that, but it's a good little read to find some information and find somebody that's done some different variation of the configs that I have, because I can't name all the situations. Everybody's panels and configs and voltages and phases is going to be different. But that's the beauty of ESPHome. You can make it yours because it's, super flexible and local. So I hope you enjoyed this one and get your Emporia device flashed over to ESPHome and brought locally into Home Assistant. Now again, I'm going to cover the Refos one. That's fully local, but you do have to pair that with their cloud app at this time. I'm still working to see if they'll do that where we don't have to even use their app and just do fully local. And that might be the king of power monitoring based on price and everything. But then the circuit setup is, I know that's really another king, but if you want to see some of that, look back on my power monitoring summary video that I'll link down in the description. So I do appreciate everybody for watching this one. Definitely let me know if you got any questions or you get stuck on things. We can come help you out in Discord. I'll leave all that down below, and I do appreciate all the YouTube members and Patreon members. Definitely couldn't do it without you. Couldn't bring new projects like this to the channel all the time. So press all them buttons down there, and y'all take care.